right, welcome. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the natural homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation and Treaty 3 territory. My name is Neil Harden. I'm chairing today's panel. With me via Zoom are Kent Seelan and Brent McIntyre. The assessor today is Rodden Pontania, and the administrative personnel is Nicole Carnegie. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg Board of Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you can leave the meeting. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment rule in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made in this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by council and is independent of it in the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order to be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the applications of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions the applicant may have, then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1, 3, and 4 on our docket today. Ms. Carnegie, please affirm the assessors and the applicant's testimony for the first property.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Roddy Pontania.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Kaplan, please state your full name.
Bruce Kaplan.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Zhu, we're just going to put you in the waiting room and we will see you shortly. Okay, Mr. Chair.
All right. So the first property is 594 Selkirk. Mr. Pontania, I understand there's a non-co-op requested on this, but can you read the preliminary information on it, and then we'll deal with the non-co-op.
Yep. So the file in front of us we have is 22-230. The roll number is 1401-036-6000. The address is 549 Selkirk Avenue. The 2024 assessment has been split into two classes. We have a residential component and a commercial component. The residential component we have at $62,000, and the commercial component was at $53,000 for the total assessed value of $115,000. And as you mentioned, we do have a preliminary issue to deal with for the non-cooperation.
Okay. First of all, I ask Mr. Kaplan, do you understand the significance of a request for non-cooperation?
No, I'm not sure what that's about, actually.
Okay, what it would mean is that The city is claiming that you did not provide the information requested in the mailers in a timely fashion. And should we find in the city's favor, that would mean that you would have to proceed first, and that any deferral or any reduction in value that we put on the property will be deferred for one tax year. So it has a very important impact on you should we grant the deferral.
Okay, I just want to make sure that the board is aware that the owner of the property is a bankrupt company, and I am the trustee of that company.
Okay, all right. You can make that point when you come to reply to the non-cooperation, but
Sure.
first of all, we will ask Mr. Pontanilla to proceed with his evidence on non-cooperation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So if we turn to page, my brief might be slightly different, but it might just be off by one page. But if you turn to page 15, I have on
Sorry,
my,
I'm having difficulty hearing.
how's that? Is that a little better?
Yes,
So if you turn
thank
to
you.
page 15 of my brief, it may
All
be
right.
16 on yours. It should be a Canada Post document.
Yes.
Okay, so once we're there, we can see the item number LP 657-1441-136CA. This is the Canada Post document that was provided to the department for the attempt to deliver the mailer. The following page has the schedule of the deliveries that the Canada Post had attempted to make. We can see the tracking number at the top, and then we can see that it starts at June 9th where the item was processed. June 10th, it went out for delivery. A notice card was left indicating where to pick it up. And then it looks like it wasn't picked up in a timely fashion, and then it was returned to the department June 29th. And I'll ask you to note that tracking number LP 657-1441-136CA. If we then head to page 19 on my brief, and maybe 20 on yours. Let me know when you're there. It should
Okay.
be the cover letter. And this cover letter is where the mailer would have been sent to. So we can see the Manitoba LTD number at the top, and then we have the address there. That's what we have on file for this subject property. And more specifically, the tracking number at the top, LP 657-1441-36CA, matches what Canada Post has provided for us. So the evidence would appear that the mailer was sent to the subject, that there was a card indicating where to pick it up. It wasn't picked up, and then it was sent back to the department. And if we head to the end of my brief, that's just a copy of the income and expense mailer that would have been sent to the subject property. And that's my presentation on that.
Okay, Mr. Kaplan, do you have any questions of the assessor?
Do you know who that numbered company is owned by? That numbered company is not at all familiar to me, nor is the address.
Okay, this is just what we have on file associated with the subject. So this is where it would be sent to when we send our income and expense mailers.
I've never seen that. It didn't come to my office. It didn't go to Sigmar's office. Had it gone to Sigmar's office, it would have been redirected to me and I could have addressed it. But I don't know who the numbered company is, and I don't know whose address that is. So I would have no way to deal with that or knowledge of it.
Okay, do you have any other questions of the assessor? Mr. Kaplan?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just looking at the assessment brief. Well, I don't see it there, but well, I guess it doesn't really matter what the non-compliance was because I'd have no way of knowing about it. So no other questions.
Okay, Brent, do you have any questions of the assessor on the non-co-op?
I have no questions, thank you.
Kent?
Just a quick question. Do we know how long this number, company, and address has been on file?
I wouldn't have that information at my fingertips. I'm sure if I did some digging, I could possibly find out, but this is just the address that we have on file associated with the subject. So there isn't really a way for us to know unless it was given to us specifically that we need to update all the mailing address associated with the subject. If not, we continue to send to the mailing address we have on record.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Is that the address that the tax bills are sent to?
I believe it would be shared with the same. Yep, 326 El Tassi Drive. Again, I don't have that information at my fingertips, but if I had to take a stab at it, I believe it would be the same.
Okay, and do you know if the taxes have been paid?
That as well, I'd have to dig into that. I haven't looked into it that far, but yeah, I'm not aware.
All right. Okay, Mr. Kaplan, then you can proceed with your presentation on the non-cooperation.
Okay. Well, as I said, on the non-cooperation, the company is bankrupt. I'm the trustee of the company. That numbered company named in the non-co-op, I have no idea who that numbered company is, who owns the numbered company. The address I've never seen before. It's certainly not my address. It's not the address of the bankrupt company. Had the request gone to the bankrupt company, it would have been forwarded to me and I would have seen it and could have responded to it. As I said earlier, I don't even know what is being stated as being the non-cooperation. So there'd be no way for me to cooperate. So I just wasn't aware of it.
Okay, is that it?
Yes, on the non-cooperation.
Sure. Okay.
Can't
Mr.
do what I don't
Pontinia,
know.
any questions?
Sure, Mr. Kaplan, when did your company take over the bankruptcy of the subject property?
Company went bankrupt July 29th, 2021.
July 29th, okay. Our deliveries would have been in June. So perhaps there might have been something there, I guess.
So
mailing address.
it didn't go to the address of the bankrupt company.
Yep, no, I understand.
Yeah, and had it gone to the address of the bankrupt company, well, the principal of the bankrupt company never brought to my attention that there were any non-cooperation issues on Selkirk that needed to be addressed.
All right, no further questions.
Okay, Kent, any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Brent?
I have no questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, do you know who the owner of the bankrupt company is?
Sorry, is that to me?
Yes.
I do. The principal was Thomas Standing.
Okay. And then you've been responsible for all the business affairs from the date of bankruptcy onwards?
Yes. Well, my company is.
Yeah, your company is. And okay, and that would include the payment of taxes and that sort of thing?
If there were funds available, then we could pay the taxes.
Okay. Question. Have you been receiving tax bills then?
Yes, and I know taxes have not been paid.
Okay. So you received the bills, and I take it you received the 2024 assessment then, which is why you're
Yes,
appealing it.
yes.
Okay. But prior to the date of bankruptcy, then you would have no information uh, on what was received by the company.
No.
What address is the notice of assessment and tax bills and that sort of thing? What address are they being sent to currently?
I would have to check on that.
Are they being
think-
sent to you, or is sent to the old company, or?
I think they're sent to the old company. But I just need to check. Oh, it's Sigmar care of my office. By the looks
Okay.
of it.
All right.
I'm just
So
looking at something from the city.
yeah. All right. All right. So obviously the city has noted the change of address now, but the question is, did they have it in 2021? All right. I have no further questions then. And I guess we'll take a recess for the board to deliberate and make its decision on the non-cooperation then. All right. Welcome back. The board has deliberated, and you can tell from the length of our discussion that it wasn't an easy decision one way or another, but we are going to grant the non-co-op because we do believe that the request was sent to the owner at the time, and the bankruptcy was subsequent to the request for information. So we will grant the non-cooperation. So what that means, Mr. Kaplan, then is that you would have to proceed with your presentation first, and that any deferral, any reduction in tax we grant will be deferred for 1 year. And since this is the last year of the assessment cycle, it would have any reduction would have no effect on this assessment cycle. So you can proceed with your presentation then, Mr. Kaplan.
Mr. Kaplan, you're still on mute.
Oh.
There we go.
Thanks. You hear me now?
You bet.
So my submission is just what I put in my written submission and documents. Property has been listed for well over a year. There have not been any offers on the property. The most promising thing that I heard was there was possibly going to be a $20,000 offer. I went back to her agent and asked if she could maybe get that up to $30,000. She went back to the offeror and they said no, 20,000 was the most they were willing to offer. And in fact, that offer never came to fruition. So there have been no offers on the property. I think it's been fully exposed to the market for quite a long period of time. And market has determined that they just don't want to buy the property. So the value I would submit is nowhere near what it's been assessed at the city. On paper, maybe it appears to have value, but it's been put out to the market in the most transparent, independent way, and nobody has shown any interest at that level in the property. And in fact, nobody has shown enough interest to actually buy it or make an offer for anyone. So I just don't think that the city assessment is supportable when we can't even sell the property for $30,000. I think if we sold it at that for $20,000, we couldn't even pay the taxes and the charges. So I expect property will just be lost to tax sale.
Okay. Is that that your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Pontanilla, do you have questions?
I guess just so I can understand. So while I fully sympathize with Mr. Kaplan in the current situation of the subject property, Mr. Kaplan, are you aware that the economic period that we're referencing is April 1st, 2021?
For which?
Are you aware that the economic period that we're valuing the property is as of April 1st, 2021? In other words, all of the evidence that you put forward, it's all on attempting to sell in the current modern market, but we are bound to the economic period that we're looking at, which is April 1st, 2021.
Okay. No. But I mean, maybe bound to that economic period, but the reality is it has to be sold now, not in 2021.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, Brent, questions?
I have no questions. Roddy had asked it.
Okay, Kent?
I have no questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just looking at the pictures in the assessor's brief, and it appears like the building is fully boarded up. Is that correct?
I've not been to the building.
Okay, do you know if it's fully vacant right now?
Yes.
And do you know how long it's been vacant for?
Since I've been involved.
Okay, since July of
21.
2021. But you don't know anything before that then.
Right.
All right. Okay, thank you. Mr. Pontanilla, you can begin your presentation then.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I believe we went over all of the pertinent information at the start. So under property description, we do have it currently labeled as a CMCMU, commercial mixed use property. The actual and effective age are both 1910. The total leasable area we have on file is 2,287 square feet. And we went over the preliminary issue there. On page 2, we do have a pad eye view map image of the subject property, so you can get an idea of the location. And then following that on page 3, we have an overhead view of the subject property. On page 4, we have a south-facing view and a west-facing view of the subject property. And then following that, we do have the Google Street View images of the subject, so we can see the condition that it's currently in. We had sent some requests for mailer information, both 2019 and 2020, but we hadn't received any. We do have a sale on file from 2016 for $220,000. I did a little bit of work on that. You just give me 1 second, I can let you know about that. Let's open a document here on the sale. Okay, so we do have one from 2016, which should be the most recent, but we weren't able to verify it. So what that means is that the department would have reached out to contact to verify the sale, and we never received a response from the vendor. But for what it's worth, we do have a sale from 2016 for 220. And then, sorry, I kind of closed my presentation there. Following that on page 7, and then for me, it takes me to page 8. It might be a little more condensed for you, but I did include some market data. So I'd included some comparable evidence from the same property type, commercial mixed use at the top. And we can see there that we do have a rental rate ranging from $11.50 at the lower end to $19.71 at the higher end. Now, these comparables, they're not within the same location as a subject property, but finding good, reliable data within the location is a little tricky. So what I do is that I just went citywide, but I tried to keep it as tight as I could to the leasable area that we have and also the effective age. So nothing would be newer, in other words. And then underneath that, I do have some comparables for the C2 for the commercial premise that we have valued on the subject property. And these are a little bit tighter and closer to the subject, but some of them might not be necessarily commercial mixed use, so they could be commercial properties. But this just gives us an idea of the market data within the neighborhood, and we do have a range from $11 at the lower end to $15.50 at the higher end. And then we do have leasable areas ranging from 572 square feet up to 2,618 square feet. From there, I have included some multifamily rent comparables. So we do have the subject is currently valued at $482.26. We do have the subject has, what am I looking at there? So we have 2 total units on the subject, and they're 2-bedroom units. So all of the market data are with 2-bedroom units that we can see there. Majority of them, I think there might be 1 or 2 there that have some 1-bedroom as well, but the majority was chosen for 2-bedroom. And we do have apartment leases ranging from $817 at the lower end up to $1,551 at the higher end. And this is all on Selkirk, Redwood, Burroughs, Flora. So we do have our subject at $482.26 for the apartment side. And then following that, we look at the apartment stream. We do have 2 suites at $482.26 monthly per suite. We currently have a 25% vacancy on the subject, so we do have the vacancy up as high as we can possibly go. We do have the other model parameters for expenses, and then we have a 6.25% cap rate for the apartment stream, which gives us a market value of $62,000. On the retail side, we do have, as you can see 2 C2 premises that we have, one at 482 square feet, one at 530 square feet, and then we also have a basement premise associated at 1,275 square feet with a nominal rate of $1.72. And on the main floor retail premises, we do have the rents. The model has it at $10.53 and $10.60 per square foot. So you can see the economies of scale as it increases slightly. The rental rate decreases. As well, we do have a vacancy of 25%, so we are accounting for the condition of the subject property on the retail stream as well. We do have model parameters of a 3% expense, $7 shortfall, and a healthy cap rate of 10.15%. And that gives us a market value of $53,000. Following that, you can see the split on the next page of the breakdown of the valuation, $62,000 for the 10 residential component, $53,000 for the 60 commercial component for a total assessed value of $115,000. On my page 13, it might be slightly different on yours. We have the cap rate information for the current cycle. Following that, we have some Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. And then I have the information in regards to the non-cooperation that we went over. And I would also like to add that I had some dialogue with the current litigee of the subject with Mr. Kaplan. And we did sign a 15-1 some time ago. And so I thought that the value was okay then, and then here we are today with the appeal on the value again. I thought that would be of note for the chair. And that's my presentation. Thank you.
All right. With regard to the 15-1, we don't see it and we don't put any weight on it. It was for the 2023 year, was it?
2023, yeah, so it should have carried for 2023 and 2024.
Okay, all right.
In
But
other words, what I mean to say by that is that the model had a higher value for 2023, and we had some dialogue, and I did make some adjustments at the time. So the model is already fairly low as it can possibly go. There's always the next general reassessment cycle to look to see anywhere else, but I just wanted to put that out there that we did have some work already done on the subject.
okay, we'll put no weight on
Yeah, no problem.
15-1 though. All right, Mr. Kaplan, do you have any questions?
No, I was just going to respond to that last comment, but you're not putting any weight on it, you said.
Yes, that's
So
correct.
probably
Since-
no point in
Yeah.
replying to that.
Okay, Kent, do you have any questions of the assessor?
Yes, do we know when the last time this building was inspected?
That's a good question. If I look at my document here, if you just give me 1 second, I did look at some. There's no notes that we had in our system in regards to when a prior inspection would have been made. But with that being said, the parameters that we currently have on this subject is very low. We essentially have all the parameters put as low as we can possibly go when it comes to the model generating the rates and the cap rates, and we have a 25% vacancy, so we have this subject value pretty as I guess as low, for lack of a better word, as we can possibly go on it.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Brent, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
All right, do you know how long this property has been vacant?
For the vacancy, probably I've seen something on a note there. As far as I can tell, when I had my conversation back in 2022, we had spoken about it, and the vacancy was, I looked through, because we have no mailer information, I tried to do as best as I could. It would appear that the vacancy would have been probably a good 4 years or so before we had our discussion with it in 2022. So from my understanding, that was the vacancy, and that's why the parameter was put up to 25%.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions then. So that then concludes the this property. So thank you very much for your time and presentation, Mr. Kaplan.
Thank you.
Now we're going to bring in. Sorry, let me just get this going here.
So is that it for me? Am I excused?
Yes, that's it.
You are,
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So our next applicant, Mr. Chair, was supposed to be here in person for 447 Watt Street, and he has not arrived.
Okay, we will then defer that till the end of the hearing. We'll move on to 534 Sergeant then.
Okay. Sorry.
And then if the appellant for Watt has not appeared, then we will proceed in his absence.
Okay. Okay. I will just admit Mr. Zhao then. He will be coming in right away. Let's just make sure that all of his audio is working. Mr. Zhao, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
All right, can you swear in, Mr. Zhao?
Absolutely. Mr. Zhao, please state your full name.
赵徐
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
All right, so Mr. Pontanilla, on 534 Sergeant Avenue.
Yes, so up next we have file 23-135. Roll number is 1305-094-0000. The address is 534 Sergeant Avenue. The 2024 assessment, once again, has been split into two components, a residential component and a commercial component. On the 60 stream, we have $436,000, and on the residential stream, we have 122, for a total assessment of $558,000. The actual year built we have is 1905. The effective year built is 1949. We do have a leasable area of 2,108 square feet. And then if we move on next to page 2, we do have a PATA eye view image of the subject property. So we can see its orientation on Sargent Avenue. Following that, we have an overhead view of pictometry on page 3 of the subject property. Following that, we have a we have a north-facing view and a west-facing view of the subject property on page 4. And then on page 5, we do have the Google Street View images of the subject property. So we can see a restaurant on the main floor and then a residential component on the second floor. We do have some mailer information received from the subject property, so we have no problems there. We have no sales history on the subject property, and we don't have any leases on file. So for my market evidence, once again, I did include on the first half, it would be a summary of some commercial mixed use properties that are the same type as the subject property. And then we do have a rental rate there ranging from, once again, $11.50 on the lower end to $14.71 on the higher end. And then following that, I did include some C4, so some restaurant rent comparables. None of these restaurants would be high chain restaurants. They're all, from my searching and understanding, local restaurants, as much as I could possibly find, or to the best of my knowledge, I should say. And the rental rates range from $12 at the lower end to $21.46 at the higher end. Following that, we do have the valuation of the subject property's residential component. So we do have the residential component at $873.11 per suite. And we do have one 2-bedroom unit on file. And then following that, I did include a range of comparables with the units ranging from $685 at the lower end to $1,193 at the higher end. So looking at the valuation of the residential component, we do have one suite at $873.11 per month. And then we do have model parameters of a 3.2% vacancy, 48.74% expense, and a 4.25% cap rate to give us the market value of $122,000. And then on the restaurant side, we do have one C4 unit premise at 1,492 square feet at $17.17 per square foot. And then we also have a storage mezzanine component of 616 square feet at $11.10 per square foot, which gives us a total of $32,456,000 at 2,108 square feet. And if you just give me 1 second here, I can bring up 2,000. Sorry, I was just looking for something in front of me. Oh, no worries. Just get my calculator if I need to. Okay, so I ended off on the total rent that was coming in, and then we do have model parameters of a 6% vacancy, a 3% expense, and an $8 shortfall per square foot. And then we apply a cap rate of 6.55% to give us the value of $436,000. And then when you add the two components together, 436,000 and 122,000, you get the assessed value of 558,000. And Mr. Chair, I am a little out of practice. I actually do have a recommendation to make on this file. I maybe should have done that at the very start, but
Yeah, you could have mentioned it.
Sort of dawned on me that we usually do that at the start when there's a recommendation, but
Yeah, okay. What
how
is your
liable I've been
recommend?
out for a bit.
Yeah, we're all a little rusty. Haven't done this in
Yeah.
a few months. Okay, what's your recommendation then?
All right, so what I was trying to get to earlier, and that's kind of what threw me off for a second, because then that's what jogged my memory to realize that I did have a recommendation to make. So originally we had $17.17 on the main floor premise, and then we have the storage component of $11.10. So what that does is it gives us an overall, so if you look at that overall area of 2,108 square feet, the overall price per square foot is $15.40. When I did my analysis of the leasable, the market data that I had on file, it did seem like that $15.40 was a little bit higher than where I would like it to be for the overall price per square foot. So the adjustment would be to adjust the main floor's rental rate from $17.17 to $15.50 per square foot, while maintaining the other premise at $11.10. The total area of 2,108 square feet is now $14.21 per square foot, which to me is a much more fair rate for the subject property, just based on the market data that I took a look at.
Okay, and what
And then from
value
there, I
did you
did
get?
have I had model parameters of $8 shortfall, 3% expense rate. And then when it brings us down to our cap rate, that was another place that I saw that I could make a slight adjustment to. So the model's cap rate of 6.55%, I increased it to 6.8%.
Okay, and
By
final
making those,
value?
yeah, and so by making those two adjustments, the final value on the retail side is $387,000. And when you add the residential component of 122,000, you come up with a revised assessment of $509,000. 509.
Okay, and how do you feel about that, Mr. Zhao?
To be honest, I still feel that's on the higher ends of the spectrum. The consideration that the assessor marketed the potential rent for the basement is quite high. The leasable area is stated in the documentation is 616, but the actual usable area is fairly small. Myself, who's 5'8", I would need to crouch down to actually enter the basement. So the actual usable basement is much, I believe, is much more smaller than what the assessor showed.
Okay, we'll get onto that then in your presentation. Um, so, Mr. Putney, is anything else you wish to add to your presentation?
No, I was just thinking maybe it wasn't so bad that I went through it all. I saved us all some time then. But with that being said, sort of finish off my presentation. We went over we got all the way up to the cap rate study or the cap rate information we had. Municipal Assessment Act excerpts, and then we do have the mailer for the 2020 year that's been attached. So,
All right. So, Mr. Zhao, do you have any questions of the assessor?
Yes, so I actually have two questions. So for the information the assessor provided, such as the lease or the net rent for these leases, are these information available for the general public?
I believe this is information that we do have on file. So this would be lease information that we receive back from the income and expense mailer request that we get, and then that's what we use to formulate our valuations. So this wouldn't be for the public record.
Okay, thank you for your answer. So my second question is, since you kind of adjusted the potential rent for the main floor, my original question was, I have a page of the City of Winnipeg 2022 municipal taxes stating that the entire property was $438,000 for 2022, and it was the same for 2021 as well. My question is, what, without any major improvement to the property, how did it increase a dramatic amount?
First of all, we're not really supposed to compare assessments one to the other, so we do have that issue to deal with. But on the wider picture of why that works out the way it does, markets change. So as time goes on, markets fluctuate, leases change, properties sell, and we constantly receive data from all of this, all these transactions. And all of this data, we take it and we put it into the model, and then we have an appraisal model that then makes out the that then produces the assessments that we then use. So in other words, all of the market data that we receive from the request that we have then goes into our model. So this would just be based on that information.
Okay. Is there a particular reason that you didn't choose the properties near our property, for example, our neighbors,
Yep.
or on general on certain avenue? I can see that a lot of buildings or properties um, look almost identical to ours. Maybe the size are different, but they're similar in terms of their multi-use. They have a residential building on top, a main floor as a commercial building. Is there any particular reason that you didn't choose these properties?
So one of the things that we like to include when we include our market data is we want to include reliable data that we can verify. One of the issues that I have when I'm looking for market data for subject properties such as yourself, which is typically an owner-occupied property, is that a lot of the owner-occupied properties don't necessarily pay leases, and so there is no lease information on properties that have an owner that perhaps lives on the top floor and then runs the restaurant on the main floor. Or perhaps it might be a gross rate, so it's not entirely clear if these are net rates that they're talking about. So looking for market data from immediately within the subject can be tricky at times. That's why what I like to do with the mixed use properties is I like to include two lists. So on the top, you'll see the commercial mixed use. That's essentially comparing apples to apples. The only issue with that is that a lot of these aren't within the subject neighborhood. And then I did try to also include restaurant comparables that we can verify as net leases, but they're not necessarily, even though they're within the, some of them might be within the market region, they're not going to be your neighbors that you see on the side because chances are we don't have reliable information on your neighbors. So there's no way that I can put any weight on them anyways if I wanted to use them.
Thank you. I have no more questions.
Okay, Kent, any questions?
Yes, have you inspected this property?
I have not inspected it.
Do we know when the last inspection occurred?
Let me just take a look at my notes that I have here for our notes. Our records don't indicate any last inspection, so I wouldn't be aware of when the last time it was inspected.
No. You mentioned about the rents and let me just turn here. I'll just make the page. 1 second here. Okay, so they have a storage mezzanine. Is this purely just a storage? Is this like an entranceway?
I believe that question would probably be better to ask of the appellant. For myself, because I haven't inspected it, I'm only going on the records that we have, which has it as a storage space. Perhaps there's a chance that we could do a review for the general reassessment next cycle and see if it should have that designation or if we should have our what's called an 08 basement label as well, which would have impact on the rental rate. As it stands now, it's unclear on the condition of the basement. So I was just carrying forward what we had on file and then making our adjustments to try to get the overall price per square foot in line with what the market data was sort of showing me.
Understood. Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Brent, any questions?
Just one question, Mr. Chair. Is there any indication of when the property was renovated?
Good question. If you just let me take a look here.
And the reason I'm asking that question is because there's a significant difference between the effective year and the original year built.
Right. Uh, so my permits review showed that we had one was for some exterior alterations in 2002. And the value was for $22,168, 22168. That would be the most recent, so from 2002.
Okay, that was my only question. Thank you.
Okay, I have some questions, particularly, well, we'll start with the apartment side of things. Cap rate 4.25%. That's on low side. Is that simply based on size of the property?
So that would be location. That would be the location, the unit size, the type of suite that it is exactly. So it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, etc. I can see here that this one is a 2-bedroom unit that we have. And if you look at the market data that I included, all of the market data I included was on 2-bedroom units. So that just goes to show you the spread there that we have on file of verified 2-bedroom unit leases. And we do have the leases ranging from 685 to 1193 at the higher end. And if we look, we have it, the comparables are from Furby Street, Jesse Avenue, Warsaw,
Okay.
Young Street,
Okay, I'm not
William.
worried so much about the rents as the cap rate right
Yeah.
now.
Well,
Cap
the
rate
cap rate
is,
it would be related to the investment rank or the quality of the subject property. It's just a modeled average cap rate. So
okay, but it's
there's
very,
nothing.
very, very low. It suggests that this is one of the finer apartments you'll
Well,
find.
not necessarily, because we are starting to do residential comparisons to each other. So residential demand is different from retail demand, right? So we have to always keep that in mind that this is 10T. This would be for the residential component of the
Yeah,
mix. So
but
the cap rate is based on residential use.
okay, but the question is though,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be able to buy just the apartment.
No, that's fair. That's a fair observation. Yeah.
You'd have to buy the entire restaurant, and I would
Yep.
suspect that a buyer would be looking for the restaurant and getting the apartment as a throw-in rather than the other way around.
Yeah, but for that reason as well, the cap rate, if you remember in my recommendation, I did increase it to 6.8%. So sometimes you look, one gets increased, the other one, it ends up being an average in the middle, right?
Yeah.
There is weight on both sides. Like it's not just the apartment cap rate of 4.25 on the entire subject. So there is going to be an overall balancing as well.
Yeah. But now the expense ratio 48.74. It's a bit on the low side, isn't it, for an older building?
It's modeled. This is just modeled average, so it's tough to say without. I didn't do any sort of an apartment non-recoverable analysis, so I'm only going on what we had on the model of 48%. I see 48 ranging 53. It doesn't seem like it's necessarily out of the range of what I've seen.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Mr. Zhao, you can begin your presentation. I noticed you didn't give any written presentation.
Really, I'm just going off my head right now. I do not like. I asked you a question previously about to the assessor regarding whether if the lease information are provided to general public, because it's not difficult for me or anyone to provide any sort of solid evidence comparisons. And also, if we compare to sale prices of different properties, as different commercial properties may vary differently, right? Some are restaurants, some are offices. Like for us, the property includes a restaurant in the bottom and also apartments. So every property are different, and it was very limited for us to go off. So really, the presentation I'll be providing today is right off my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What do you feel a proper valuation would be then?
I don't have the exact number right now, but I feel like even after the adjustments the assessor has provided earlier, it still seems to be on the upper side.
Okay. All right. Do you operate the restaurant?
That's correct.
And what about the apartment? Is it rented out separately or is it
It's not
owner occupied?
rental at the moment. It is kept as a more of a storage. As we have a residential somewhere else, we don't live here.
Okay. So it's rented out to,
It's not rented out.
it's not rented out, it's vacant?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay. So what is it used for then?
So far we are using as a temporary storage, and also if there's weather conditions really horrible, we may consider staying upstairs instead of driving home.
Okay. Now you were talking about the basement as well. Could you tell us about the basement?
Yes, so the assessor wrote that the basement has a leasable area of 616 square feet. But really, maybe that is the basement size, but the actual usable space in the basement is relatively small. There are a lot of pipes on the ceiling, and the floor to the ceiling is fairly low. So someone as myself, who is 5'8", I would need to crouch down or bend over to kind of getting through the basement. And the basement also has all of the furnaces, all of the stuff that taking a lot of space as well. So the actual usable space for storage is relatively small. And I feel that $11.10, I wasn't sure where, I wasn't able to see any comparable regarding the number. So I feel like that is on the higher end of the spectrum.
All right. Mr. Pontanilla, do you have any questions of the appellant?
No, the only question I had, you had asked it yourself in regards to the occupancy of the second floor if it was owner occupied. So you asked a question that was on my mind as well. Thank you.
Okay. Brent, any questions of the Mr. Zhao?
Just one question, getting back to renovation. So is that second floor unit renovated?
We recently bought this property, so we're not too sure, but according to the information I have, the last renovation it's done was over more than 2 decades ago.
But it's physically set up as a 2-bedroom unit?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
Hey, Kent, any questions?
No, I think all my questions have been answered, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Then I guess that concludes the hearing for this property. I took a little bit of license. I was asking my questions at the time, so pardon me. So then we will move on to the last.
Is it okay if I just add another thing? Just came off my head right now. Is it okay if I
Sure,
add it
go
right now?
ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so recently something that I was browsing through came to my mind because I was searching. Recently, my property, we recently bought the property for about 4 months now, and the property has been vandalized twice within 4 months. The first time was if you can see the picture from the assessor, there was a fence next to the building. That part was broken, were torn apart, vandalized. We had to get it repaired. And just a month later, it was completely, the front part of the fence was completely torn off. Everything was destroyed, and we had to do another repair on that. So, with that happening twice within 4 months, brought my curiosity to really search or dig into like the crime rates in the neighborhood, which to my surprise were according to the Winnipeg police service, they provide a crime map of the entire Winnipeg. Now, this property is situated in the Spence neighborhood, the lower Spence neighborhood, and unfortunately, the property or the neighborhood of where the property resides currently has the highest counts of reported crimes in entire Winnipeg. I think that might be very crucial as a major factor to determine the actual market price of the property. If a person sees a property located in a place where there's typically a higher crime rate, where it's actually increasing every single year, the potential buyer might not want to go to that place. So the market value of the property in the entire neighborhood would dramatically go down. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, Mr. Pontney, any questions arising from that?
No, I would just say that the rental rate that we have overall of just give me a second here, the $14.21. I would say that and the cap of 6.8, that's starting to reflect the neighborhood that the subject is in. So we have to put a value on it, regardless of what goes on around it. We have to value it. So it looks like our valuation, our rental rate isn't very aggressive, and that would be my final remarks on it.
Okay, Kent or Brent, any questions arising from that?
Sure, just a quick question. Can you confirm how long you've actually owned the property?
We owned since May, so it's just about 4 months.
4 months. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Brent, any?
And I have no questions. Thank you.
All right, so thank you. That again concludes this property. We'll move on to our last property, 447 Watt Street.
Okay.
All right, Nicole has the appellant arrived?
He has not.
He has not. All right. So we will proceed in the absence of the appellant. Mr. Pontney, can you proceed with your presentation?
Sure. And I will be seeking for confirmation, so I'll just go through my brief with you guys and present
Yeah.
my file.
Yeah,
So up
quickly.
next, we have file 22-193. The roll number is 0206-278-3700. The address is 447 Watt Street. The 2024 assessed value has two components again. We have the residential component at $98,000, and we have the commercial component at $127,000, for a total assessed value on the subject of $225,000. So as previously stated, this is a mixed-use property. So there's 2 floors to it. We have 3 premises on the income stream. We have an actual and effective age of 1960, so we have the same effective age as for when it was actually built. And we have a total leasable area of 1,520 square feet. On page 2, we do have an overhead view of the subject property from our pad eye view map. On page 3, we have the overhead view from our pictometry map to show its location there on Watt Street. And then following that, we do have a north-facing and a west-facing view of the subject property. And then from there, we have the Google Street View images of the subject property. And I'll note on page 5 on the second image, it's the one that has piano in front. That's the subject.
Okay.
We have received income and expense mailer information, so we have no problem there. We have no sales history on the subject property, and we have no leases on the subject property, as I believe it's owner occupied. Once again, I have the same mixed-use rent comparables that I use to try to compare apples to apples of similar mixed-use property types. And we do have rents ranging from $11.50 at the lower end up to $14.71 at the higher end. And then on our C2 rent comparables, we do have the leases ranging from $7 on the lower end up much lower end. That one might have not maybe been in there, but snuck in. Up to where are we going here? Up to $22.16 on the higher end. For our subject on the apartment stream, we do have the subject valued at $576.86. And we do have 2 units, and they are 2 2-bedroom units. And so I did include all 2-bedroom unit comparables for the subject, and we do have Units, leases ranging from $566 at the lower end up to $1,075 at the higher end. And this would all be located near the subject property, Monroe Avenue, Henderson, Gateway, Washington, Jameson, Harbison, and Consul Avenue. On page 11, we do have the residential stream for the subject property. So we do have 2 suites at $576.86. And then we do have we do have model parameters of a 3.2% vacancy, a 60.17% expense rate, and a 5.45% cap rate. And then following that, we do have on the retail component, we have a C2 stream at 448 square feet. We have that $14.28 per square foot. And then we do have a 1,072 square foot storage or C6 at $4.37 per square foot. That's my understanding, being a piano store, you do have minimal overhead for retail use, and then you have the storage space in the back where the pianos go, in case you were wondering why it was sort of allocated the way it was in area. So that gives us a total potential rent of $11,082. And then we do have model parameters applied of a 6% vacancy, 3% expense, and a $7 shortfall to give us a net operating income of $9,466. And then from there, we have a modeled 7.45% cap rate applied. And that gives us our value of $127,000. And then following that on page 13, we do have both streams being shown side by side. And you can see the $225,000. And then following that, we do have our cap rate information that we provided, and then our Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. And then following that, we do have the mailer, which does show the property as being owner occupied.
Okay.
And that is my presentation.
Okay, Brent, any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Kent?
I have no questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I have no questions. So, thank you very much. We have heard all the items scheduled today, and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you very much.